So I want you to imagine standing in like one of the most breathtakingly beautiful places on Earth.
Oh, absolutely.
You're in Ladakh, right? It's nestled way up high in the Himalayas. The sky is this piercing, impossible blue. The mountains are jagged, snow-capped. I mean, it looks like absolute paradise.
It does, yeah. On a postcard, it's perfect.
Right. But if you strip away that stunning view and just, look at the physiology of it, this environment is essentially a torture chamber for the mammalian body.
Oh, completely. It's an environment defined entirely by its extremes.
Mm.
I mean, you're sitting somewhere between 3,000 and 5,500 meters above sea level.
Which is incredibly high.
It is. The air is so incredibly thin up there. It's a state known as hypobaric hypoxia, which basically means there's a severe lack of atmospheric oxygen pressure. And on top of that, you are dealing with severe cold.
Yeah, the temperature swings are wild, right?
Oh, yeah. They swing violently. You could have a comfortable 20 degrees Celsius in the midday sun, and then it plummets to a bone-chilling minus 39 degrees at night.
So you're basically gasping for air just tying your shoes while simultaneously freezing.
Exactly. And if that wasn't enough, you're being bombarded by intense ultraviolet radiation because of that thin atmosphere. You're dealing with virtually zero humidity and just punishing wind velocity.
That sounds miserable.
It's brutal. The sheer combination of these stressors actively assaults your cellular integrity. Like every single second you are exposed to it.
Which brings us to the mission of today's deep dive. We are exploring a really fascinating study from 2019 that looks at this exact brutal environment.
It's a great paper.
Yeah, the researchers wanted to understand how a popular, everyday, over-the-counter sleep aid melatonin might function as a kind of biochemical shield against all that.
Right.
They tested whether it could protect animals against a truly toxic combination of this high-altitude environmental stress exposure to a very specific hidden environmental poison, which is fluoride.
And for you listening right now, this goes far beyond just a niche story about a laboratory experiment on a mountain.
Yep.
This is a profound exploration of how extreme environments fundamentally manipulate our internal biochemistry, and really how natural compounds that our bodies already manufacture might hold these hidden, almost superhero-level therapeutic powers.
Yeah, it's wild.
We are only just beginning to map out how these mechanisms work under extreme pressure.
So true. But to really grasp the significance of this intervention, we first have to understand the baseline physiological damage of simply existing at that altitude.
You have to know it's broken before you can fix it.
Exactly. And the study focuses heavily on oxidative stress. Now, that's a term that gets thrown around a lot in like skincare marketing or on the labels of expensive juice cleanses.
Oh, for sure. It's a buzzword.
Right. But looking at the actual biology, what is actually happening inside the cells when a body is freezing, irradiated, and starved of oxygen?
Well, oxidative stress is essentially a severe biological imbalance. To really understand it, you have to look at the mitochondria.
The powerhouse of the cell, as we all learned in high school.
Exactly. They are the power plants inside your cells. Your body is constantly generating energy, and a normal byproduct of this process is the creation of reactive oxygen species, which people usually just call free radicals.
Okay, so they're a normal thing.
Yes, normally. Your body has an internal antioxidant defense system that just neutralizes these free radicals before they can cause any real damage. It's a carefully managed biological equation.
But the high-altitude environment fundamentally breaks that equation, doesn't it?
It completely shatters it.
Because when the mitochondria are suffocating from the hypobaric hypoxia, they can't complete their energy-generating cycles cleanly. They basically start misfiring.
They do. The lack of oxygen, combined with the stress of the cold and the UV radiation, it sends the whole cellular machinery into a state of panic.
Wow.
So the mitochondria start spewing out massive, uncontrolled amounts of these free radicals. The production rate just completely overwhelms the body's natural, built-in antioxidant defenses.
And a free radical isn't just, floating around harmlessly. By definition, right, a free radical is a molecule that is missing an electron.
Yes.
So it's chemically unstable and biologically desperate to replace that missing piece.
And that desperation is exactly what causes the damage. Because they are missing an electron, they will violently tear it away from the nearest available structure.
Like whatever is closest.
Exactly. They attack lipids, which are the crucial fats that make up your cell membranes. They denature vital proteins, they disable enzymes, and they will even rip right into your DNA strands just to steal electrons.
It's just a rapid destructive chain reaction. It actually reminds me of how rust quietly and persistently eats away at the steel frame of a car.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah, like you don't necessarily notice it on day one, right? But on a molecular level, the electrons are being stripped away until the entire structural integrity is compromised, and
Yeah.
then the frame just snaps.
That mechanism, that stripping of electrons, causes widespread cellular injury and leads directly to systemic physiological dysfunction. At high altitude, a mammalian body is effectively rusting at an accelerated rate from the inside out.
Man, that is bleak.
It is, but the researchers in this study introduced another variable, because surviving the altitude is hard enough, right? But they factored in a compounding environmental threat, which is fluoride in the drinking water.
Right, the fluoride factor. Now, when most people hear the word fluoride, they immediately picture toothpaste or like their dentist talking about enamel protection.
Sure, it's positioned as a health benefit.
Yeah, exactly. But on a larger scale, outside of controlled dental applications, it behaves very, very differently.
It does. Fluoride represents a classic biological paradox. In trace amounts, yes, it's beneficial for dental health. However, it is fundamentally a toxic element.
Okay.
When humans or a livestock ingest excessive amounts, which actually typically happens through naturally contaminated groundwater, it leads to a condition called fluorosis.
Which is bad.
Very bad. This involves severe skeletal damage and a whole cascade of systemic toxicities that target the liver, the kidneys, and the blood.
And the study points out that fluoride toxicity is a unique, escalating concern specifically in mountainous, high-altitude regions. Geologically, these areas often have soil and groundwater heavily laced with fluoride-containing minerals.
Yes, the geology plays a huge part.
But the real danger isn't just the water itself, right? It's how the high altitude changes the way the body processes the water.
That is the most insidious part. The environmental exposure is just the first half of the problem. The physiological trap is the second half.
How so?
Well, when you are exposed to hypoxia, that lack of oxygen we talked about, you naturally start to hyperventilate to pull more air into your lungs.
Makes sense, you need air.
Right. But this rapid breathing blows off excess carbon dioxide, which actually alters the acid-base balance of your entire bloodstream. It makes your blood more alkaline.
Oh, wow. And that shift in blood pH forces the kidneys to react, right?
Exactly right. The kidneys sense this shift, and they alter their function to compensate for it. And because of this altered state, the specific chemical environment inside the kidneys favors the reabsorption of fluoride back into the bloodstream.
Wait, really? Instead of just excreting it into the urine like normal?
Yes. Instead of flushing it out, it pulls it back in.
So the lack of oxygen alters the blood, which basically tricks the kidneys into locking the biological exit doors.
That's exactly what happened.
The body is taking in these toxic levels of fluoride from the mountain water, but the mountain air literally prevents the body from flushing it out. It just accumulates in the tissues.
It accumulates, yeah. And sodium fluoride is a massive catalyst for oxidative stress. It aggressively disrupts cellular metabolism, which dramatically ramps up the production of those free radicals we were just talking about.
Oh, man. So the altitude is already causing the cells to rust, and the accumulated fluoride acts like a corrosive acid poured directly on top of it.
Precisely. The biological systems are completely gridlocked at that point. Which brings us to the intervention the researchers chose to deploy to fight this: melatonin.
Right, which is so wild to me. I have a bottle of melatonin gummies in my nightstand that I take for jet lag.
Most people do.
Yeah, I mean, it's synthesized by the pineal gland in the brain specifically to regulate our circadian rhythms and just, tell us when to go to sleep. It seems like a massive leap to use a sleep cue to fight off heavy metal toxicity and altitude sickness.
It sounds completely counterintuitive, right? Until you actually look at melatonin's molecular structure. While it is famous as a hormone, its chemical architecture makes it one of the most potent natural antioxidants in the mammalian body.
That is fascinating.
Yeah, it has this remarkable ability to directly scavenge free radicals.
Because it can act as a molecular sponge, right? Like it
Right.
can freely donate its own electrons to those desperate destructive free radicals, neutralizing them instantly.
Yes, and here's the crucial biological mechanism that makes it so special. When most antioxidants donate an electron, they actually become a weak free radical themselves.
Oh, so it's a trade-off.
Exactly, a trade-off. But melatonin is incredibly stable. Its molecular structure allows it to absorb the missing electron charge and distribute it across its chemical ring, remaining completely stable and inert.
So it neutralizes the threat without becoming a new threat itself.
Exactly. And then it's simply excreted by the body.
And it has a secondary signaling function too, right? It doesn't just neutralize the radicals directly, it actually communicates with the cell's DNA to upregulate the body's own internal defense mechanisms.
Yeah, it tells the body to start manufacturing more of its own protective enzymes.
So it fights the damage on the front lines while simultaneously calling in reinforcements. That's incredible.
It really is. And the scientific community already knew melatonin had these tissue protective, anti-inflammatory properties. But the driving question behind this research was whether oral melatonin could handle the simultaneous 1-2 punch.
The altitude plus the fluoride.
Exactly. Could it halt and reverse the specific physiological alterations caused by fluoride-induced oxidative stress while an animal was actively suffocating and freezing in a high-altitude environment?
Right. So to answer that, the researchers set up this 35-day experiment using adult male Wistar rats at the Defense Institute of High Altitude Research in Leh Ladakh.
Right there at 3,500 meters above sea level.
Yeah, out in the real conditions. And they structured the timeline in a very specific, sequential way.
The design was highly intentional, yes. Days 0 to 7 were simply the control period. The rats ate a normal diet and drank normal water. This established their baseline physiological health while living in the thin air.
Okay, getting a baseline makes sense.
Then, from day 8 to day 21, the exact same group of rats was given 50 parts per million of sodium fluoride mixed into their drinking water to induce the toxic oxidative stress.
Okay.
And finally, from day 22 to day 35, they continued the fluoride water, but added an oral melatonin supplement mixed directly into their food.
So wait, if I'm looking at standard clinical trials, they usually run simultaneous groups, right? Like a control group, a poison group, and a treatment group all running in parallel.
Usually, yes.
But the researchers here used the exact same rats sequentially, layering the treatments over time. Doesn't that risk the cumulative stress heavily confounding the data by the end of the 35 days?
It's a great question. Using separate groups is great for, pristine lab data, but it fails to replicate a genuine clinical scenario. By using a single group sequentially, they eliminated biological variability.
Oh,
They knew exactly how one specific rat's body reacted to the baseline, then the toxicity, and then the intervention.
that makes a lot of sense.
And more importantly, if a human population or a herd of livestock is suffering from fluoride toxicity up in the mountains, you don't have a time machine to administer preventative medicine.
Right, you can't go back and protect them before it happens.
Exactly. You are walking into a situation where the biological damage is already severe. You have to treat the active damage. They wanted to prove melatonin could actively repair a broken system, not just shield a healthy one in advance.
Okay, that is brilliant. And delivering the fluoride via the drinking water and the melatonin via the food, that perfectly mimics the natural routes of environmental exposure and agricultural intervention.
It grounded the entire experiment in environmental realism.
Yeah. So let's look at the physiological toll this combination actually took on the rats, starting with the visible physical changes. When the fluoride phase began, their feed intake plummeted drastically, right?
It did.
And their body weight dropped right along with it.
Yes. Fluoride toxicity doesn't just make them feel sick. It fundamentally disrupts their metabolic enzymes. It creates metabolic chaos, leading to a hyperglycemic effect.
Like a blood sugar issue.
Exactly. Their blood sugar control breaks down, which severely suppresses the neurological triggers for appetite. They stopped eating because their internal chemistry was completely disorganized.
But when the melatonin was introduced into their food on day 22, the data shows their feed intake and body weight rebounded significantly.
It was a very clear recovery.
So the melatonin was able to penetrate those cells, clear out the reactive oxygen species, and basically allow the metabolic enzymes to reorganize and function normally again, returning their appetite.
That's exactly it. However, the water intake data tell a completely different, really fascinating story.
Oh, right.
Because the feed intake went down with fluoride and back up with melatonin.
Yeah.
But the water intake continuously increased throughout the entire 35-day period.
The rats just kept drinking more and more water.
Yes, and the melatonin did absolutely nothing to stop it.
Wait, why? The melatonin fixed the appetite but couldn't fix the extreme thirst. Why the discrepancy there?
Because the mechanisms of action are entirely different. The appetite loss was caused by oxidative stress damaging metabolic enzymes, which, as we established, melatonin excels at repairing. The increased thirst, however, is a direct result of the physical properties of the sodium fluoride salts. Those salts heavily activate the thirst center in the brain, and act as a powerful diuretic on the kidneys.
Ah, okay. So the fluoride physically forces the kidneys to flush out more water, so the rats are just constantly dehydrated and urinating, regardless of cellular damage.
Precisely. Melatonin is a molecular sponge for free radicals. It can't magically stop a salt from acting like a salt in the kidneys?
Yeah, it really highlights that melatonin is a targeted biological tool, not just some cure-all magic wand.
It does. It also proves that the researchers were tracking nuanced physiological pathways,
Yeah.
not just looking for, broad superficial improvements.
Yeah.
And to truly see the targeted power of that tool, you have to look at the blood work, the hemogram.
Yeah, let's talk about the blood. During the 14 days of just the fluoride exposure, the blood profile showed a system in total
The
crisis.
total crisis.
The rats suffered significant drops in hemoglobin, their overall red blood cell count plummeted, and their packed cell volume dropped. They were essentially developing severe anemia.
They were. The fluoride-induced free radicals were physically shredding the hemopoietic tissue inside the rat's bone marrow.
Which is where blood is made.
Exactly. That tissue is the manufacturing center for red blood cells. With the factory damaged, the blood lost its ability to efficiently carry oxygen. And remember, they are sitting at 3,500 meters, where oxygen is already critically scarce.
Oh man, so their bodies were suffocating from the outside air and suffocating from the inside because their blood couldn't even transport what little air they inhaled.
It's a terrifying feedback loop.
And the white blood cell counts, too, specifically the neutrophils, eosinophils, and monocytes, those spiked dramatically.
Yes, because the immune system was ringing every alarm bell it had. Those specific white blood cells are the body's infantry. Their sudden spike indicated massive, widespread systemic inflammation and tissue destruction.
The immune system was basically trying to fight a chemical fire it couldn't put out.
Exactly. Until the final 14 days when the melatonin was introduced. The study shows a profound reversal here.
Yeah, the red blood cell counts and hemoglobin levels rebounded, and the hyperactive white blood cell counts calmed back down toward their baseline levels.
Right. Because by neutralizing the sheer volume of free radicals, the melatonin stopped the destruction of the bone marrow. It cleared out the cellular debris field, which allowed the stem cells in the marrow to safely divide and begin manufacturing healthy red blood cells again.
And once the tissue destruction halted, the immune system realized the crisis was under control and stood down.
Which normalizes the white blood cell counts.
Wow. So the physical recovery was evident, but to definitively prove that oxidative stress was the core mechanism being manipulated here, the researchers had to zoom in even further.
They had to look at the organs.
Right. They looked deep inside the cells, focusing specifically on the liver, which is the body's primary detoxification organ and takes the heaviest beating from ingested toxins.
They analyzed specific liver function biomarkers enzymes known as ALP, ALT, and AST. Under healthy conditions, these functional enzymes operate strictly inside the liver cells, acting like workers inside a factory processing chemicals.
But when free radicals attack the walls of that factory, the cell membranes, they punch microscopic holes in the structure.
Yes.
This is a process called lipid peroxidation, where the stable fats making up the cell wall are turned into reactive peroxides. The wall literally crumbles, and the enzymes leak out of the cell and into the bloodstream.
It's catastrophic for the cell. And during the fluoride phase, the levels of ALP, ALT, and AST detected in the blood skyrocketed.
Showing they were leaking.
It was indisputable evidence of severe hepatic stress. The liver cells were actively rupturing. But once melatonin was supplemented, the enzyme levels in the blood steadily dropped back down.
Because the melatonin intercepted the free radicals before they could strike the cell walls, right?
Exactly.
With the attacks neutralized, the liver cells could repair their membranes, sealing the factory walls and stopping the internal enzymes from leaking into the blood.
And to quantify that specific chemical repair, they measured a marker called MDA, or malondialdehyde. MDA is a direct byproduct created when lipids are destroyed by free radicals.
So it's essentially a chemical measurement of rancid, destroyed cellular fat.
That's a graphic but accurate way to put it.
Yeah.
The MDA levels spiked massively under fluoride exposure and then plummeted once melatonin was introduced, confirming the cell walls were successfully being protected.
They also measured the overall fight left in the body through a marker called FRIP, right? The total antioxidant capacity of the blood plasma.
Yes.
And that capacity cratered during the fluoride phase because the body's natural defenses were completely exhausted. But the melatonin supplementation successfully recharged that capacity.
It did. There was one particular marker in the blood plasma, however, that behaved completely counterintuitively at first glance. They measured something called DPPH, which tracks the active free radical scavenging activity happening in the blood.
Right, and you would naturally assume that when the toxic fluoride is introduced and oxidative stress takes over, the body's scavenging activity would just drop to zero because it's overwhelmed.
You would think so.
But the data showed the scavenging activity actually spiked upward during the worst of the fluoride exposure. That seems backwards.
It seems totally backwards until you view it through the lens of survival biology. The DPPH activity spiked because the body recognized it was under lethal attack. It
Oh.
triggered an emergency response, flooding the bloodstream with every last reserve molecule of natural antioxidants it had stored up,
Hmm.
just desperately trying to fight off the massive generation of free radicals.
Oh, wow. It was throwing everything it had at the fire.
Exactly. But it's an unsustainable panic response.
Yeah, that makes sense. And once the oral melatonin was administered, the DPPH levels actually normalized and dropped back down.
Yes, because the melatonin stepped in and took over the heavy lifting. It acted as the primary shield, which allowed the body to stop panicking and conserve its own depleted reserves.
That is just so elegant. When you synthesize all of these distinct data points, the restored appetite, the recovery of the bone marrow and red blood cells, the calming of the immune response, the sealing of the liver cell membranes, and the stabilization of the blood's chemical markers. I mean, it paints an incredibly comprehensive picture.
It really does.
Melatonin isn't just patching a single localized pathway. It operates as a systemic shield, protecting multiple interconnected physiological systems simultaneously.
And the overarching conclusion of the study is really striking. Melatonin acts as a potent, deeply therapeutic antioxidant, capable of ameliorating fluoride-mediated oxidative stress, even while the subject is enduring the severe, compounding environmental traumas of high-altitude hypoxia and freezing cold.
It's amazing.
The researchers clearly establish its promise as a vital nutraceutical diet supplement for animals surviving in these harsh, contaminated environments.
And by extension of our shared mammalian biology, it highlights potential therapeutic pathways for humans living and working in those exact same extreme altitudes.
Absolutely.
You know, we started this deep dive looking at the brutal realities of the Leyland environment. And what this research ultimately reveals is this profound, almost dizzying interconnectedness.
It's all connected.
Yeah, the ancient geological minerals in the mountain affect the groundwater. The thinness of the mountain air fundamentally alters how your kidneys filter that water.
Right.
That interaction causes your individual cells to generate destructive molecules that rip apart your DNA and bone marrow. Everything is inextricably linked.
But the brilliance of that interconnectedness is that a simple compound synthesized in the darkness of the brain, simply to tell us when the sun goes down, possesses the precise chemical architecture required to step into that cellular chaos, donate its electrons, and hit the reset button on our internal survival systems.
Which leaves you with a truly provocative thought to consider. If a hormone naturally produced by our pineal gland to regulate sleep can be repurposed to literally shield our organs and repair our cellular walls from severe environmental toxins at 5,000 meters above sea level,
Yeah.
what other latent, untapped superpowers might the naturally occurring chemicals already floating through our bloodstream possess? What else are our bodies inherently capable of surviving if we just uncover the right biological key to unlock it?
It's a question that completely redefines the boundaries of human physiology and environmental adaptation.
It really is. Something to chew on the next time you look at a bottle of sleep aids on a pharmacy shelf.